Welcome to the Vitalistic Voice. I'm Dr. Colin Elkin, and my guest today needs absolutely no introduction. I know you know him, Dr. Ed Cordero, who's been very visible in the chiropractic profession for such a long time and has made such advances in our profession from a scholastic model, from the vitalistic model. I'm so excited to have him here with us today. Dr. Ed, thanks for joining us.
Dr. Colin, thank you for the invitation. It's always a pleasure to be able to come together with like-minded people trying to get a message that we want to get out, not only to the chiropractors that have been practicing for a while, but for all the new ones that are starting. So it's such a pleasure, and I'm honored and blessed to have this opportunity to be on your podcast today.
Well, it is such an honor to have you. And you have such a wealth of experience, but I'd like to go back to start with from the beginning. You know, you grew up in Puerto Rico, and how did you become inspired? What introduced you to chiropractic? How'd you get into the profession?
So it's not one of these stories like a lot of people that, oh my God, I was paralyzed and somebody gave me an adjustment and I started to, no, it's none of that. When I left Puerto Rico and I came to the United States, I was in the military. I was in the U.S. Navy serving, and I had married my wife, Debbie. And at that time, Debbie was a state inspector. My wife is an entomologist by trade, and she was doing some. She became part of the working with the state of Florida, and she became a state inspector. And she was inspecting houses for problems with insects and things like that. And unfortunately, she fell, and she was looking for some help. I knew nothing about chiropractic at the time, and so she found a chiropractor. I went to go with her to the first visit as newlyweds. Obviously, I wanted to make sure that I was there to support her. And this guy blew my mind. He was just so passionate about what he was talking about and but what he could do to help my wife Debbie in that moment, that I was just enamored with what he was saying. I didn't know chiropractic. I didn't understand chiropractic. I didn't understand 90% of the things that he was sharing, but I was engaged. And so that allowed me to have an understanding. My wife did amazing with this chiropractor and got some incredible results. And so I said to Debbie, I said, Debbie, my time in the Navy is coming. I got to make a decision to stay or to do something different. I really think that I want to do this thing called chiropractic. And I was really inspired by your chiropractor. And one thing led to another. And next thing you know, I'm signing up to go to chiropractic school. And I chose Life Chiropractic College at that time. And I never looked back. So it was something that happened to my wife that I fell in love with what the chiropractor was saying, that eventually motivated me and put me in an opportunity to make a decision to do this as a life career.
So when you were at Life, I'm curious, when you were at Life, who were your biggest mentors and who inspired you into chiropractic and learning the principle, understanding the principle of chiropractic? And then after graduation of Life, where did you go and practice? Because you've had quite a journey.
Yes. So obviously being at Life, I got there in the heyday of Life Chiropractic College. Back then, there was 3,000, 3,500 people in the chiropractic program. Nowadays, the average school is lucky to have 150 to 100 to 200 students, in a class. But there was 3,500 students at that time, and so my number one influence at that time, because I knew no better, was Dr. Sid Williams, and that was through the DE movement. So Dr. Sid, Dr. Nell, and a lot of the speakers that came in there, Dr. Santo, Dr. Ian Grausom, a lot of the greats that were at that time participated with the Dynamic Essentials movement. So I would say without a doubt, Dr. Sid and Dr. Nell were definitely my influence when I first started there. And then as I got into practice and I started going, I always was a DE man anyhow, like Dr. Sid used to say, well, you're a DE man. And so from there, attending DE, I just got so involved in wanting to love and to give and to serve out of my abundance. And so I've been a DE participant and a DE speaker since I started chiropractic school in 1989. And so it was just an incredible opportunity to learn from the greats. And I'm so excited because just like you, Colin. We talked a little bit, before the podcast. I'm more excited about chiropractic now, 32 years into this, than when I was in 1989 when I first started. And I've been fired up, and I've been blessed that to go from A to Z in this profession and be able to enjoy this incredible profession and what it has to offer.
You know, you said something that really triggered me, and I'm going to set you up for this one. In that you said to love, serve, and give out of your own abundance, and I know that was a real motto from Dr. Sid. And I remember meeting Dr. Sid when I was young in
Mhm.
practice and going to DE. And isn't it amazing? And I know you are a mentor of leaders with the journey that you've had. And can you just comment on the ability to create leaders in this profession? I believe, in my opinion, is the biggest necessity for chiropractic to grow. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely, Dr. Collin. So I'm gonna add a little different perspective. So when I was in the military serving in the U.S. Navy, I was an aircraft mechanic, and one of the things that my boss pulled me aside with the rest of our team, and he was creating leaders, and he said, "I want to share this message with you guys. We are in war. We are in if we're in a time of war, if we're in a time of battle, and there's only one leader, let's say it's me, and I get killed, the mission stops." So my job is to create every single one of you to be a leader. So in the event that, God forbid, I get killed in battle, you, Ed, then can pick up. If something happens to you, Colin, you pick it up. If something happens to Colin, the next person picks it up, and the mission can continue in perpetuity. And so what I left the military in my brain was, no matter where I was, whether I was in a leadership position or not, I was always going to try to raise other leaders, especially to accomplish the mission that we were working towards. So when I got into chiropractic and I was blessed to have an opportunity to become a leader, I wanted to prepare other leaders because that way the mission can continue. So you remove the self, you bring in the mission, and you build up leaders that can continue that mission and that vision in perpetuity.
That's brilliant. I love it. Fantastic. Great answer. So here's my question. So when tell us the journey. You were in practice for how long? And then what was the journey from practice into your involvement in the education system?
So I practiced for 19 years in private practice in West Palm Beach. I had a successful high volume practice. I was the only Hispanic chiropractor in the West Palm Beach area, which is a very affluent area of Florida. And so I was the first Hispanic chiropractor, and I was so blessed to have this incredible practice. And so 19 years into this practice, I get a phone call. The phone call is from the Board of Trustees from Sherman College, and so I'm practicing. I'm having a great time. I'm helping my community. I get this phone call, and I thought it was a prank phone call because the person on the other line said, "Hey, my name is Dr. So and so, and I'm on the board of trustees of Sherman College, and we're looking for a new president, and your name came up." And I thought it was a prank call, and I hung up. And so 5 minutes later, the doctor calls back again. He goes, please don't hang up. Don't hang up. I'm Dr. So-and-so from the Board of Trustees of Sherman College Chiropractic. We're actually looking to, do a presidential search. Would you be consider the opportunity? Your name has come up. And so at that time, I figured, listen, I have nothing to lose. I was not looking for this, but if they're reaching out to me, obviously somebody sees the skill set and the wisdom and the leadership, opportunities here. And so I went ahead and went through the process. Long story short, after 20 candidates, I ended up being one of the three finalists. And after the three finalists, I became the president at that time elect. And that was back in November of 2013. I'm sorry. So this is 2012. And so this is 2013. And so I went from practice, high volume, taking care of my community, serving my community, to getting into an arena that I knew nothing about. I knew nothing about running an institution. I knew nothing about academia. I knew nothing about knew anything about running an incredible budget that they use to be able to allow this school to function. I had concepts and understanding of business principles, and I applied that in my high volume practice. But at an academic level, I had no idea, Dr. Collin, how to manage that. But I knew one thing. I knew that I had a purpose. I knew that I had a passion. I knew that I had a desire to make a difference in this profession. And I heard once somebody say that as a leader, you don't need to know everything. You just need to know how to pick up the phone and call the right people that do know everything, and they can help you then to achieve those things that you wanted to. And so that's how I had my transition from private practice in 19 years into going into then academia. So I went to Sherman College. I was there for 10 years, serving as a capacity as CEO. And then I finally got to a point that I realized, you know what? God has blessed me incredibly in private practice. God has blessed me incredibly in helping Sherman College to get to where Sherman College had gotten to after 10 years. And I knew there was something more, Dr. Colin, but I didn't know what. And then at that time, we just parted ways. I was grateful for the opportunity and for the blessing. And then I was just moving on to the next chapter. And at that opportunity, I ended up moving to Florida. And while I was in Florida, because I was wanted to bring my parents from Puerto Rico, they're getting elder, they're elderly, and I wanted to bring them to be closer to me and Debbie, my wife. And so I brought them into Orlando. And this is a funny story. After 6 months of them being here, they went back to Puerto Rico. They've been living in Puerto Rico for 60 plus years. So they didn't get used to being here. And I was like, oh my God, the only reason I moved to Orlando was to bring my family, my parents and my brother. And then now after 6 months, they went back. What am I doing here, God? And then all of a sudden I ran into MaxLiving. I went to go say hello because I knew that their corporate offices are here. At that time, they had an availability for the CEO position. And God just opened up that door. And I was like, oh my God, what an incredible blessing. I didn't come to Orlando to serve my parents and bring them here. I was actually here because MaxLiving at that time had a need, and I happened to be here at that time. And it was just a wonderful opportunity for me to serve MaxLiving and vice versa. And it worked out to be an incredible opportunity. So, following God's lead sometimes is painful and it's challenging and it takes sacrifices, but the outcomes of that are incredible. And I've just been very blessed. So from the military to private practice to Sherman College of Chiropractic to then MaxLiving. So it's been an incredible journey, and I'm so grateful.
That is absolutely an amazing journey. And I want to just bring up a couple of things that you had said, Dr. Ed. You had said, in being in private practice and then not knowing much about going into the school system or becoming the president of Sherman College. But here's the interesting thing, and I want to say this for our viewers, in that being in private practice and developing a high volume practice requires some certain skills. And
Mhm.
it's really important that you become a relational person and a very good communicator. You have to become a good communicator and a good leader, a good educator. And those skills, how would you comment, those skills translating into the position of Sherman College and then the 10 years you spent at Sherman College, would you agree that that was an important skill set to build?
Absolutely. And I realize this because we're always skeptical. We don't think we're the leaders that we should be. We have these skill sets. We know how to run our practice, like you said. We know how to run our finances. We know how to communicate, but we don't think that we can serve at a higher level. And so I always looked at it from this perspective. If I have these skill sets and I can do it in my office, and now the opportunity opened at a bigger level, you know what? If you can communicate at any level. It doesn't really matter. If you have the purpose and the passion of what you do as a professional, and especially as a doctor of chiropractic, bringing a message of hope to people, well, you can do that at wherever you're plugged in, you can do that. So you definitely need those skill sets, but you also need to have this desire to want to grow and allow people to pour into you. Because like I said, when I got to Sherman, I knew a lot of the things that I thought I didn't know. It was just a bigger scale. And so when I ran into a wall that I didn't know, I would go to the right person, and I was open and receptive to learn. And so once I learned, I was able to apply the skill set, the knowledge that I already had, that you already have, Dr. Colin, and obviously the people listening. And then that's how you become this incredible leader. You have to communicate concisely, clearly, and effectively, and you have to do it at a drop of a dime. Sometimes you have to be able to communicate in 10 seconds or 20 seconds a message that could take an hour to explain. Sometimes the number one thing that I found, and this is me personally, was I was always a decisive leader in making decisions. So when something in my office needed to get done, I would make the decision right there and then. Regardless of the consequences, Dr. Collin, I made the decision. 90% of the time that it was the right decision. The other 10% of the time it wasn't. And I would learn from that and then do it correctly the next time. When I went to Sherman, what I realized in academia that there was a lot of moving parts, a lot of things going on at the same time. And as a leader and an effective leader, I needed to be decisive and make decisions in split seconds that could affect the entire organization. 90% of the time I was correct. The other 10% of the time I wasn't. And I learned from those mistakes.
And I heard the quote that a good leader doesn't always make the right decision, but a good leader
Mhm.
always makes the decision right.
That's
And
right.
I think that's a brilliant quote, and you just basically simplified it right there. So tell us, I'd like to explore a little bit about your experience through those 10 years at Sherman College. One of my goals, and I'm very vocal about this, is I would love to see another school with a vitalistic subluxation based philosophy planted specifically here in Canada.
Mhm.
There is only, and of course, as you know, only one school in Canada, and of course, their philosophy, their position is not philosophical, not subluxation based. I would love to see another school that counters that here north of the border. What can you address and what can you discuss as far as some of the challenges with running the school for those 10 years?
So you know that in the United States there's 21 chiropractic, colleges, only in the United States. If you go to Europe or Australasia, there's probably another 10 to 15, give or take. And so the challenge is this: out of the 21 chiropractic institutions in the United States, there's only three of them that are technically following a philosophical, approach to science, art, and philosophy. And those three universities are the ones that are producing, if you want to use the term, the best principal chiropractors, to go out there. But even those three universities, with Sherman colleges, Sherman is one of those. There's still some dysfunction. Unfortunately, Dr. Collin, there's still some dysfunction because you can teach chiropractors what to do. You can give them the experiences. You can share the message. You can share the philosophy. And when the chiropractor, he or she graduates, depending on their journey, they may not follow that philosophical concept that was taught to them and that was instilled in them since day one. The majority do, and they go out there and they have successful principal offices, but some of them don't. And so when you look at 21 institutions and only three of them are teaching the tenets of the art, the science, and the philosophy, well, there's a problem because if we want to grow chiropractic all over the world, we need to have more schools that are teaching those tenets. When you go to Europe, and a lot of people are not aware of this, but when you go to Europe, Australasia, it's a different concept. In the United States, you do a 4-year undergrad program, and then you do your 4-year chiropractic program. Then you become a doctor of chiropractic. You take your boards, you go out and you practice. In Europe and Australasia, you go from high school right into your degree. So if you're going to be a chiropractor, you go from high school right into your chiropractic program. So now each country may have something different. Like you might have to be a physical therapist before you can become a chiropractor. Each country has something different, but you don't do a doctorate's program. You do a 5-year program. Technically, it's a master's degree program, and now you go out and practice. So when you're comparing apples to apples, it's not. Now, we're very fortunate that through Europe and Australasia, we may have a couple schools that are definitely principals and that are teaching and preparing, but the majority are not. So the majority in the United States are not principled, teaching principal chiropractic and science and art, the philosophy. Europe is not doing that. A minority of them are. And then we have Canada with 1 or 2 schools, let's say, that are not doing that either. So we need to establish in Canada a school that's vitalistic, that's subluxation based, that focuses on the art, the science, and philosophy of chiropractic, because the people are going to benefit from a philosophical, strong chiropractor, he or she, that's going to go out there and share the truth, not water down the message, allow people to have hope based upon what's going to happen, but there's going to be an understanding that the person, that the individual receiving chiropractic care has to understand the why we do what we do. And so that message is not clear in the United States. It's not clear in Europe and Australasia. And obviously, it's not very clear in Canada as well. So we need to fortify and create more opportunities to create principal chiropractors. And so we need the institutions to be able to be there to provide that support, to provide that education, to provide that wisdom and knowledge so we can continue to build an army of principal chiropractors that are going to go out there and make a difference with chiropractic and what chiropractic really is, but more importantly, what chiropractic is not.
So this is great conversation, and I would like to ask you, in your opinion, what is the major bottleneck from that happening amongst the majority or all of the schools?
So the problem that causes is the fact that we have chiropractors that are going out there thinking that they're prepared to serve the masses with the education that they receive. And when they get out there, they realize that they don't understand chiropractic. They can't communicate chiropractic. They can't deliver the goods because they may only know one or two different techniques, and those techniques are not responding. The people are not responding the way that they need to. And so what happens is you get a motivated chiropractor graduating from XYZ school thinking that he or she is prepared. And when they get out there, they don't become successful. And then they start to skew the principles. They start to do things that are not chiropractic. They start to kind of sell things instead of really teach and educate people. And then what happens is the perception of the public is, well, chiropractic is this, and chiropractic is that, and chiropractic is this. And they're completely confused because they don't understand what chiropractic really is. They may get fortunate enough to go find a chiropractor like yourself, like myself, and like a lot of the people that are probably listening to this podcast and receive an incredible opportunity, but the majority are going not. And I want to share something funny. So I think that this is perfect. The chiropractor that I went to that enamored me with chiropractic and wanted to be chiropractic was one of the largest rank mixers in our profession. He didn't even understand principal chiropractic, but I didn't know that then. I know that after I became a chiropractor. But the one thing that was for him that he loved being able to share that message, but he wasn't a principal chiropractor. So there's people that may get confused with the chiropractor that appears to be a principal chiropractor, but is really not. And eventually they find out. So the bottleneck is going to be if we don't start changing and bringing the message of pure principal chiropractor to academia, then we're going to have a lot of chiropractors that are really not realizing their potential of what chiropractic is because they just never got the understanding of what chiropractors do and why we do what we do. And therefore, then again, the people that suffer is not you and I. We'll figure it out. It's the patients not receiving what they're paying for, and that's an injustice.
Right, right. Amazing. Yeah. So can you comment, and I'd love to know for my own personal reasons, because you had tremendous success at Sherman College with the growth and overall success of that institution. So can you comment on how that happened? What qualities did you bring and what leadership skills did you use to help Sherman develop the way it did in the 10 years you were there?
So when I got to Sherman, like I told you, I was clueless in my mind. I didn't think that I knew. But when I got there, the first thing that I did is, and this is just, to me, was just standard practice in my practice, was I started doing a disc analysis on every single person that was there. A disc analysis is a behavioral profile, how people function when they're normal and how they function under stress. So what I did was I went ahead and did a disc profile on everybody on my staff just to see where everybody was. I realized, and this is not a negative thing to Sherman at all, but I realized, and this applies to any organization, that there were silo mentalities amongst the organization. So this department was doing amazing. These other three departments weren't doing very good. This department was doing amazing. Therefore, they created this silo and they didn't help anybody else. They just kept doing what they were supposed to do to maintain what they were doing. And so the first thing that I did was I got to do SWOT analysis. I got to talk to every employee and figure out what are the strengths, what are the weaknesses, what are the opportunities, what are the threats. So I would have an idea. And what I realized is that the things that were done in the past, I wanted to know what that was. And so in the SWOT analysis, I was able to realize what had happened in the past. You can't move forward unless you look what's happened in the past. And knowing what happens in the past, I implemented those things that worked, and those that didn't, we started working to change them. So we went to the past, we came forward, we implemented the things that work, and then we started creating things on those things that didn't work. We did the behavioral disc profiles to find out the people that were working. Are you in the right position? Are you've been here 10 years, but maybe you're in this department where that's not where your skill set is. I really need you over here in this department. And so we started working that component of it, putting people in the right place at the right time, creating KPIs, creating great templates so people can follow and then grow. And once we were able to do that, then we created a strategy. We created a vision. So the board and I got together and we created this vision. And the vision was to bring Sherman to the world, to bring the message of chiropractic and Sherman to the world. And then I went out like a crazy man. I spent a year out just traveling for an entire year, getting people to know what chiropractic was and principal chiropractic, what Sherman College provided, and how we can make a difference. And Colin, when I'm telling you, I did over 1,000,000 miles my first year of just flight time, going to every part of the world because I wanted to bring the message out and the brand and how we can help society with principal chiropractic. And then that took me about a year. The second year I condensed, and then I started functioning on where those states or those areas that I needed to do more specifically. So first it was abroad, going out and letting everybody know, and then I went ahead and did more of I don't know what the word I want to use, but more specific areas where we then started really pouring in who Sherman College was. So we started seeing the growth. We started seeing the referrals of students. We started seeing people sending money to Sherman College. But this is the important key, okay? Had nothing to do with Edwin Cordero. It had to do with a group of motivated individuals and professionals that everybody brought their skill set. Dr. Cohen, I brought him in about a year of being there. Once I kind of figured out, because I knew that Dr. Neil Cohen was going to come in and help me incredibly with the skill set that God has blessed him with its connection and communication and relationship. That wasn't my skill set at the time. And I realized that as a leader, but I knew that Dr. Cohen had that. And so I brought in Dr. Cohen. And so together we created this army, and we just went out there and we went crazy going out there. And so what it did was it took 3 years to create the shift. It took 3 years to enhance the brand. It took 3 years for people to realize, hey, I thought Sherman College closed their doors, but yet I see that that's not the case. And then I built this incredible team to support us through the executive team. And then that's how Sherman went from closing their doors when I assumed the position to thriving when I left in 2022.
You can see how this is just an extension of your skill in building a high volume, busy practice, and that a chiropractor with a busy practice has to build a team and create a vision, cast a vision for that team, inspire that team, and it can't be done by one person. It has to be a collective group. And obviously, you took that skill set and used that at Sherman. So I give you huge congratulations for that.
Thank you.
So what's next for Dr. Edwin Cordero? What
Well,
you spent your time at Sherman, you were with MaxLiving for a year and a half or so, and now
mhm.
what is the vision for Dr. Cordero?
So like I said, I was blessed being at Sherman. I was blessed being at MaxLiving. I decided that I want to use that skill set. A lot of times it's so funny, and I think you can relate to this, Colin, and also a lot of the people on the podcast. So, some people think that, okay, well, I've been in this 32 years. I'm done. I'm just going to kick back and enjoy my family, enjoy the grandchildren, et cetera, et cetera. But when you have this burning passion that God puts in your heart, 32 years, you're just beginning. Like I told you, I'm more excited about chiropractic now than I was when I started 32 years ago. And so I wanted to do something to give back to the profession. And I figured, you know what, let me use my wisdom, my skill set, my experiences. So I wrote a book about a year, almost a year ago. And the book was just talking about against the odds. How do you become successful by having all these setbacks and then becoming successful? So I shared my personal biography of how I did 11 different jobs. And those 11 jobs, I never thought that they were going to teach me anything. But yet when I got into a leadership position, every single one of those jobs helped me and showed me how to build character to become the leader that I am today. So I wrote the book and I did that, and I figured, okay, this is good. And then I started speaking, continued to speak all over the world, bringing the book so I can help different people. And then I realized that we have a community of chiropractors and chiropractic students that are graduating that are clueless. And I'm not saying, and I'm not going to blame that the school didn't teach them. For whatever reason, they're clueless, okay? They're going out into practice. They have tremendous loans to pay back. They have investments and open up their offices, and they're still lost. And I figure there's a niche for somebody like me or somebody like you or somebody like Dr. Cohen that we can go ahead and start sharing that wisdom. And so I started Cordero Consulting Group about a year ago, and I've been trying to help those people that are looking for help. Now, this is, and I'm very transparent, Dr. Colin, I'm going to share this with you. I don't want to coach anybody. I want to coach chiropractors and business people that want to make a difference in whatever it is that we're trying to help them with. There's a lot of chiropractors that'll hire you as a consultant or as a coach. You help them, and then they don't do what they're supposed to do. And then you know what happens? They quit, and then they blame you because you didn't help them. And that's not fair. So we have to be very transparent. If we're going to work with somebody, that person has to do their part. I do my part, you do your part, and together we help that organization to scale, to grow, to accomplish whatever it is that they want to accomplish. And so I started right off the bat, letting people know, if you want to work with me, you got to do your job. I'll do my job, you do your job. And so I've been very blessed. I'm not working with a lot of people at this moment, Colin, but that's by choice. But I'm here and I'm available to work with those that want to work, want to grow, want to scale, want to become better, and not have to go through all the challenges and disappointments that I went through or that you went through, because that's why they're hiring somebody like us to be able to help them. So I'm working right now with Cordero Consulting Group. I'm not only working in chiropractic, but I'm also working outside of chiropractic, because I do believe that there's a gap. And let me share with you, if I can, Colin, what this gap is. Chiropractic is such in a unique bubble that we're limited with the resources that are out there for us to continue to grow our profession. And so you can only give so much. You can only support so much. We need some outside resources to help chiropractic move and grow and become where it's supposed to be in its rightful place. So what I'm trying to do, this is my heart, and this is what I'm trying to do right now. I'm working outside with some business consultant. If I can work with the CEO of a small to large corporation that gives money, donations to the community, okay, for whatever, but benevolence or whatever they want to give money to, why can't I work with them, demonstrate to them that, hey, chiropractic is a solid business model. There's solid people there, professionals that know what they're doing. And why don't you take a portion of some of that money that you give away and let me give it to the chiropractic world, where now we can start using outside resources to help the chiropractic world to grow and to get the message out to as many people as possible. So now we can become a major player. And so if I can be that person that narrows the gap from the business world that has millions of dollars to throw away to bring some of that money into the chiropractic world, we're going to be better off as a profession. And I feel that that legacy for me would be amazing, to use these leadership skills to go to the outside world and bring some of those resources back into the chiropractic world.
I love it. That's absolutely brilliant. And I did do some research, and I did see that your book is available on Amazon, and I will share
Mhm.
the Amazon link in the chat below on this podcast, and as well as your website for Cordero Consulting. So yeah, that's amazing stuff. And actually, you bring up a great point, and I've said this many times to our coaching clients in the fact that when we graduate from school, we graduate with our chiropractic mind, and our chiropractic mind is very compassion oriented, service oriented. It's all about caring for people. We just want to care for people. The majority of chiropractors that start chiropractic school, and I'm sure you're very well versed in this, is what is their main goal is they want to help people. They're not sure how they want to help people, but this is a good vehicle to
Mhm.
help people. But developing the business mind is very different. And I find that with many of our coaching clients, the chiropractic mind and business mind are two separate things. And that's a big challenge for many chiropractors to jump from one mind into the other mind. Can you comment on that?
Absolutely. Dr. Sid Williams used to say, never let the right hand know what the left hand is doing. The right hand being the loving, giving, and serving hand, and the left hand being the business hand. And when those two mix, there's a problem. Okay. That's why you, as the chiropractor, are the communicator, the person that educates, and the person that delivers the goods as far as the adjustment. Everything else from the business hand is done by your team. And the clearer you get that message, the better it is. And so you don't mix those two hands. What happens is in chiropractic schools, they don't teach you the business hand. They teach you the service hand, the loving, giving, and serving, and they teach you the 3 or 4 schools, the philosophical component of why you do those things. But without the business hand, when you graduate and you go out there, you're now in the business world. You are an entrepreneur, and you better have an understanding of the business concepts. And a lot of people are completely clueless, and unfortunately, they go through some struggles. Or now they have to spend more money to hire somebody like you or I or Dr. Cohen or whoever else to learn those concepts. And they're frustrated because it should have been part of their academic education. And so when I took over Sherman, one of the things that I realized is that we had, like the majority of the chiropractic institutions, we had 2 chiropractic business classes that were given in the last 2 quarters of the career. Now, Colin, let me ask you a redundant and stupid question. When you were in your 13th quarter, were you worrying about learning about business, or were you worrying about where you're going to go, where you're going to get the money, how are you going to open up the office? You're not thinking about the business concepts. You're thinking about graduating and getting out there and serving people. And
Yes.
then it hits you right in the face that you know nothing about business. So one of the things that I did is I started to find out how I can create better business acumen. So we partner with Dr. Dean DePice and Dr. Jen DePice back then and doing a program called G10. And it was graduation plus 10 years. And what it was a concept that we were working through, that if we started in quarter 1 in a quarter system, and we went through quarter 14, and every quarter there was business acumen classes all the way through 14 quarters. By the time you graduate, you were no different than anybody graduating from a business school with a chiropractic education as well. And so we started and implemented that business acumen. Things happened and we weren't able to continue the relationship, but the point was no school is doing that. So you really can't blame the students 100%, because those 2 classes, even though they had a lot of information and were requirements, weren't really that much to help the students to be able to graduate. So this is my recommendation to the students that are listening to us. Regardless of what they're teaching, you still have to go outside of the academic, purview, and go find these things and learn these concepts, because you have to get out there and serve the community, bring the gift of chiropractic, bring philosophical chiropractic to the hurting world, but you also need to know how to run a business.
That is absolutely amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. That's beautiful. And you're right. And I 100% agree that that should be a mandatory part of the curriculum in all chiropractic colleges. I mean, we're developing leaders who need to be very good and very articulate in business. So
Mhm.
I 100% agree. So Dr. Ed, I want to open up the platform for you. Any final thoughts? Anything you'd like to share with our viewers? What's the future hold for you?
So it's really interesting because I was talking to you before the podcast, and it's like you get to this stage, and like I said, we want to be able to serve and give back and whatever. I still feel that I have plenty of miles still left in me. I still have plenty of opportunities to share, whether it's keynote speaking, whether it's coaching, whether it's helping young chiropractors to become successful, whether it's taking highly successful chiropractors and scaling their business. Because that's another thing we didn't talk about. What about those that are doing amazing and they belong to a group or an association, or they're coaching, but they want to grow to the next level? It gets very limited, the amount of people that can help those individuals. So I want to be able to continue to use my God-given gifts to help this profession, to grow this profession, to make sure that when people remember 20 years from now, 30, 40, 50 years ago, what happened at that precipice of chiropractic, where chiropractic did this and then it just held, and we just can't get over the precipice and be able to grow to the place. I want to leave a legacy that people know that you and I and others like us did everything that we can, regardless of personal growth, regardless of personal wealth, regardless of what we are doing, that we done everything that we can to make this profession better for the future chiropractors, because this profession will continue without us. I just want to make sure that it's moving in the direction that's going to be in a principled manner. So right now I'm coaching. I'm trying to help as many people as I can with the skill sets. I continue to do keynote speaking, platform speakings, anything that I can do to provide value to this profession. I'm available to do so. And I'm so blessed, honored that God has given me health. God has given me this incredible wife that supports me. God has given me these incredible kids, that love me and support me. 6 grandchildren to keep me young. I mean, God just continues to just provide things in my life that gives me that spark to continue to do what we're passionate about in chiropractic. And so that's what I'm doing, and that's the road that I want to continue to move on. But I'm so blessed for this opportunity, Colin, not only to know you personally and to know your heart and your family's heart, but you have contributed to chiropractic in an incredible way. And I'm so blessed that you and I are on this journey. And we need a lot of more like you and I and Dr. Cohen to continue this journey so our profession can thrive for our future generations.
Well, likewise, and thank you very much. And you are absolutely an example of that spark. And I remember having dinner with Irene Gold, and I know you're very good friends with Irene.
Mm-hmm.
And Irene told me something that really hit me. And she said back in the days when her and Reggie were very young in the profession of chiropractic, they met with BJ Palmer, and BJ Palmer impressed upon the two of them that you need to give back to chiropractic. This is a blessing that you're in this profession. And when Irene told me that, like something spiritually happened in my soul. And I feel that that is absolutely important. I think every chiropractor needs to recognize that you obviously recognize that we have this incredible sense of gratitude, and we are so blessed to be in this profession, but it's really our responsibility to give back and to advance the profession in whatever way we can.
And one last pain point. You said that very beautifully. One last pain point. I think that one of the things that I've seen, Colin, and I think you've seen this as well, is that because chiropractors have not taken care of the business hand, what happens is they get into practicing for 20 or 30 years, and now they can't afford to do the things that you and I are blessed to do because they didn't take care of the business component. It's so important to take care of the business component. So when you get to this stage of your life, you can do this, but you've taken care of business as well. And you can do this in a way of giving back to the best of your ability. But I wanted to share something with you. I think you think this is funny. I was talking to Irene one time when I first took over, and we were having a meal. I was in Boca Raton, Florida, visiting Dr. Cohen and I, and we went to go see Irene. And we were sitting down, and she said, "Dr. Ed, thank you for becoming the president of Sherman College. But I want to tell you something. The worst job in chiropractic is becoming a president of a chiropractic school." And she just blew my mind. I was like, what? I had just taken over the job, and this is what she was telling me. But I understood what she said. This is a job that not everybody wants to do, not everybody can do. And it is an incredible job that unfortunately people don't come and give you accolades for what you did. But when you know that you're working for God, you don't need the accolades. It's okay. I did it because that's what God told me to do and blessed me with the skill set to do that. And so when you're out there trying to do what you do it because it's something that God is directing you to do. Don't do it because you think it's the best business opportunity. It's everything is in God's will and God's timing, not in your will and your timing. That was a lesson that I learned, and my 32 years have been an incredible blessing, not only to me and my family, but to the people that I've been able to serve in those 32 years.
That was what that's a mic drop ending right there, Dr. Ed. So thank you so much. Well, Dr. Ed Cordero, I can't thank you enough for being on the podcast today. We're going to share your contact information in the chat below. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of people that want to, talk further with you and what you do and what you can provide. So you're definitely a blessing to this profession. Thank you very much for being with us today on the podcast.
Thank you, Colin, and thank you to all your listeners for giving me this opportunity to share my heart and my passion, which is chiropractic. God bless.
Thank you, Dr. Ed.